The Chronicles of Uzaya, a novel by Robert Ray. This audiobook is narrated by Silas Grim, an AI voice built from scratch. No human voice was used in the recording of this audio. Chapter 30. The Transcendence. Part 1. The Black Pyramid. They carried him upward, and the pyramid closed around him. Uzaya's body hung suspended in the air, unable to move, unable to speak, but fully aware. He floated between the drow warriors while the wizard drifted ahead. Inside the pyramid, light from the archways faded within a few steps. The wide entrances narrowed into tight passages, each branching in a different direction. They chose one. As he was ushered along, Uzaya struggled against the sense that the dimensions of the structure were far greater than the pyramid's exterior would suggest. Sound carried too long, the warrior's footsteps returning to his ears with a delay that made no sense. They entered a vast, featureless chamber, marked by plain columns that rose endlessly into the void. Another opened beyond it. The space stretched wider than the pyramid should allow. Its floor bore no mark of passage. A cool breeze brushed his skin where no air should move. The corridor opened onto a broad processional way, wide as a road, its ceiling lost to darkness. Trees grew here, unlike any he had seen. Along the edges of the path, gardens of dense shrubs and flowering growth framed stone facades, their greens muted and their blossoms a uniform milky white. A steady current murmured nearby, gentle as a stream. They passed an ornamental basin where a tree-shaped column rose, liquid cascading from carved bowls along its length in an unbroken cycle. A bird crossed the space from one tree to another. Uzaya watched it go, unsettled that the motion felt so ordinary. They passed a temple that rose on one side, crowded with arches and sculpted figures locked in silent devotion. Opposite stood a sterner, unadorned hall built for assembly or judgment, with others behind it swallowed in the darkness. The symbology of the eternal eye was everywhere, worked into walls, reliefs, and carved surfaces alike. The way ended at a junction of branching halls. They turned toward steep stairs marked by candelabra and carried him upward. The warrior's boots barely whispered on the polished stone. The wizard floated ahead without sound. The only noise was the steady beat of Uzaya's heart, and beneath it, the low drone of the stasis field holding him suspended. He would never have imagined this was what lay inside the pyramid of his dreams. The shattered one rose in his mind. Black stone, open sky, silence. He had stood at its threshold once. If he had entered then, would he have found the same thing? The thought broke as warmth spread from his chest. The pendant was no longer cold. The warmth was not comfort. He recognized it for what it was: alignment. It thrummed against his skin, keeping time with his heart. They climbed higher. The passages began to change. Plain stone gave way to worked surfaces etched with spirals that repeated without resolving. Silvery lines ran through the stone itself, threading through walls and columns, folding back on themselves, overlapping and rejoining. Uzaya tried to follow them and lost his place almost immediately. Reliefs showed figures in worship, bodies twisted and elongated, their devotion rendered without balance or restraint. This was no accident of design. The pyramid had been built for this purpose from the beginning. It was shaped to resonate with the spiral. Doctrine set in stone. The drow had not lost their way. They had chosen another. They emerged onto the ascendant court. The platform projected just below the apex, open to the air on three sides. A space meant for proclamation and judgment. It overlooked Eldenport in ruin. The city spread beneath it in full view. Above it, the grim symbol dominated the stone. An inverted pupil, broken circles, roots cut deep. A faint purple light stirred within its lines, motion contained beneath the surface. Emperor Nethris Duskrin stood at the edge. He was tall for a drow, skin the deep black gray of volcanic stone, white hair drawn back into intricate braids threaded with silver wire. Eyes were a muted lavender, steady and unreadable in the dim light. His armor was black, articulated in flawless plates that fit without seam. Silver channels ran through the metal in precise lines, harmonic currents moving beneath the surface in steady rhythm. When spells struck him, they faltered. Light bent off the plates. Force lost cohesion before it could settle. A cloak of midnight silk fell from his shoulders. Where it hung low, the fabric thinned and faded, light passing through it, so that the edges of his form seemed to blur and recede. At his hip rested a curved blade, its pommel shaped in the likeness of the eye above. The warriors repositioned Uzaya so that he was facing toward the Emperor on the ledge. Nethris looked north, showing no sign he had noticed him. The deep cult's offering served its purpose, he said, gesturing toward the shattered gates of Valros, toward where Cathulmar still stood, motionless. Tell them to retrieve it. I need it contained in the rifts before it decides to act on its own. A warrior bowed. At once, Emperor, and hurried away. After a long moment, Nethris turned toward Uzaya. He moved with a fluid grace, slow and deliberate. His gaze moved over Uzaya's face, lingered on the unnatural pallor of his skin, then settled on the pendant at his chest. What is this? He gestured toward Uzaya as he spoke, the motion dismissive. The wizard settled onto the stone and stepped forward. Drow blood, Emperor, an abomination, surface raised. Yet he gestured to the pendant, a Veilguard artifact. Nethris's eyes narrowed. He stepped closer to the pendant, but did not touch it. The rhombus shape, the workmanship, the matrix precision. Velkureth. He spoke the word carefully. Thuindar. Veilguard. Bonded. He circled Uzaya, assessing him as if he should not exist. Nethris halted directly in front of him and leaned in, within inches of the stasis field. You are corrupted. The wizard nodded. He belongs to neither world. I can bring him into alignment. But the pendant has bonded to him, Nethris mused. Dispel the stasis. The wizard gestured, and the ambient drone abruptly ended. Uzaya caught himself as he dropped to his feet. Nethris reached toward the pendant. His hand stopped only inches from it. These were buried with the old order, lost when Tharn Eskar was taken from us. Uzaya met his eyes but said nothing. Nethris stepped away and looked out over the ledge. Smoke obscured the city. Buildings burned if they stood at all. Hundreds of drow patrolled the streets below, securing the districts. You are an anomaly, not fit to be claimed by drow or anything else. Yet you carry our relic, one you cannot possibly understand. It understands me, Uzaya said, not hiding from the contempt in the Emperor's voice. The Emperor flinched, then moved closer. Blasphemy, he whispered, the word forced through clenched teeth. His gaze dropped to the pendant. But it answered. The words slipped from him before he could stop them. He froze, breath caught halfway in. From the pendant burst a blinding light. Nethris raised his hand, shielding his eyes. Part 2. The Ascension. Light shone outward from the pendant, spilling in every direction. It was steady, unyielding in its authority. Uzaya couldn't move, held by the weight of some attention that made gravity feel like a suggestion. The Ancient One. Here, now, at this moment. The heat in the pendant rose fast, turned scorching hot, then failed. As it did, the fleshy eye disengaged and began to emerge. It pulled free from the pendant, stretching its ethereal form, then materializing as it lifted into the air. Fist-sized now, it hovered between them. The pupil was an inverted triangle, black as void, surrounded by a burning iris of crimson light. Delicate tentacles writhed around it, thin as fingers, moving with a slow, liquid grace. Nethris braced. His hand moved toward his blade. The warriors on the ledge beside him shifted, weapons half raised. The eye grew. Nethris held its gaze. "Why?" he screamed upward. "Why him?" He turned to his guards. The command caught in his throat. "Kill him!" Thex did not move. A heartbeat passed. Then 3 drow warriors started forward. The eye pulsed. The 3 warriors halted mid-step, armor clattering together as movement died. Their mouths opened, but no sound came. Their bodies began to smoke as skin tightened and cracked. Armor corroded in place, the metal aging centuries in seconds. Rust bloomed across the metal surface, leather split. The flesh beneath withered and dried. One fell, then another, then the third. Bodies crumbled into dust. Corroded metal fragments clattered to the ground. The eye saw it all. The remaining warriors backed away, weapons lowered. Discipline gave way to fear. Nethris stared at the remnants of men, 3 of his finest. "Impossible," he whispered, stepping back toward the ledge. The eye continued growing, tentacles lengthening, the triangular pupil widening within its burning iris. Now 2 feet across, then 3, then 5. It was adding to its mass, flesh forming from nothing, or from somewhere else, from wherever the eye truly belonged. No longer ghostly, its surface glistened, throbbing with life. 10 feet across, the tentacles now thick as a leg. Its presence filled the court, writhing, reaching. A 4th warrior lunged, blade sweeping as he closed the distance. The strike cut through empty air. Uzaya had not moved. The warrior had simply misjudged the space. Distance bent around the eye. The correction came without warning. The warrior vanished mid-step. His armor collapsed to the stone, empty. The metal already smoking, already corroding. The eye continued to expand, rising above the floor of the court. Its mass no longer confined to the space that had birthed it. Tentacles extended, thickening, stretching outward as the eye lifted toward open air. Several guards broke and ran. They made it 3 steps. Bodies crystallized, then shattered. Fragments scattered across the ledge like broken glass. The servants were already kneeling, faces pressed to stone. Not moving, not breathing loudly, not attracting attention. The eye paid them no heed. It drifted upwards toward the apex. Nethris stood motionless at the edge of the ledge, staring up as it passed him, rising above the pyramid's crown. The eye hovered, a vast mass of wet flesh suspended in open air. Its crimson center burned, unblinking. In the streets and buildings surrounding the pyramid, drow forces halted, weapons lowered as they looked up. Across the burning districts, anyone with eyes could see the impossible shape suspended over Eldenport. A seal. Then it spoke, not in words. Reality bent to carry the message. Certainty pressed into every mind on the ascendant ledge, into those watching from below, into all who could see the pyramid. Witness. Part 3. The Supplantation. Nethris stumbled back. His hand went to his blade, but he didn't attack. Couldn't. Not after what the eye had done to his guards. He looked at Uzaya, at the pendant, at the eye hovering above. Then his expression changed. "The Eye-bearer," he whispered. The prophecy was real. He fell to his knees. Not submission, but the weight of realization crushing him. For centuries we waited, served the spiral, built its empire, but it never came. He looked to Uzaya. His eyes held fury and despair. "We were never meant to rule?" Nethris screamed, raising his blade. Not toward Uzaya, but toward the Ancient One itself. "I am Emperor!" Above, the eye's pupil focused. It pulsed once. Reality distorted. Nethris simply ceased. His blade clattered to stone. Armor collapsed, empty. No body, no remains. The other guardsmen didn't move. The servants remained prostrate. Only then did understanding start to take shape. Silence on the ascendant court. Uzaya felt it. The Ancient One settled its attention on him. A tapping at the threshold of his mind. An invitation to receive. Uzaya closed his eyes and breathed. The pathway opened without force. Knowledge flowed into him, not as an intrusion, but an awakening. Neither taught nor learned. Simply present, as if it had always been there, waiting for him to notice. The pyramid's purpose, the network's design, the Ancient One's will, the Drow's true role, the spiral's unchecked corruption. And with it, the accounting, not in guesses, in lives. Holford was the first to fail. The people there, the enclave, all swept into the receding tide. The drowned quarter. A voice over breakfast, porridge offered without expectation. That kindness had not survived. Everything that had tried to define him from the outside suddenly fell away. Uzaya understood then why the Ancient One had waited. Waited for one who would not turn away once the cost was known. Uzaya stood where countless others had broken. He accepted.
There is a knowing in thee, that never wakes and never sleeps. It sees the root beneath the root. The word beneath the word. Look away, look away. What watches from the deep?
Epilogue. Far beneath the world, in chambers once tended but long since abandoned, the pyramid hummed. It was much smaller than the one that rose in Eldenport, and far older. Spiral corruption had long since threaded the stone, turning its ancient channels toward entropy. At the center of the inner sanctum, a figure stood before the resonance heart, where the pyramid's power converged. He was tall for a drow, skin dark as the black stone around him. White hair, braided and bound with bone and silver, fell past his shoulders. An elliptical stone rose from a pedestal at the center of the sanctum. Fractures split its surface, and beneath them something moved. Green and heavy, slow as sap drawn through stone. This was the pyramid's resonance heart, the place where its power aligned and its will took shape. The air felt heavier near it. Movement slowed almost imperceptibly. Sound dulled around it. The figure stood motionless before the core, his awareness spreading through it, tracing the network that ran beneath the world like a second skeleton. He came to test a single question. Did it still live? Then the frequency shifted. The change carried through the chamber as pressure. The hum dropped out entirely, a beat of silence. Then it returned, unchanged in tone, yet no longer in accord with the world around it. Far above, after 3,000 years of silence, the Black Pyramid had awakened, but not with spiral energy. The figure's breathing slowed. "So," he said quietly, "it still answers." His fingers touched the spiral-carved pendant at his throat. Its pulse slipped out of rhythm, then returned, altered. Resistance pressed back through the network. Centuries of preparation resolved into clarity. The drow had invaded to conquer, expecting the pyramid to serve them as it once had. When it woke, its potential was immediately turned against them. The Ancient One asserted itself through the very channels the drow had dutifully enabled. The system answered, but not to them. What asserted itself now was a dreadful vision, one stripped of drow authority, moving through systems they had reawakened and lost simultaneously. Mortis understood then what they had become. Not chosen, used. He turned from the resonance heart and looked upward, not toward the surface, but toward the presence now moving through the network they no longer controlled. The words of the prophecy spun maddeningly in his mind. The Eye-Bearer was given to rule. He will be made the punishment. Behind him, the resonance heart's glow steadied within its fractures. Whether the network could still be reclaimed no longer mattered. Far above, the Eye-Bearer stood where that question had already been answered. Far below, Mortis felt the weight of what must follow. End Book 1. You've been listening to an audiobook of the Chronicles of Uzaya, written by Robert Ray.
Before the storm remembered storm, before the river learned its name, something moved beneath that bone of every world before it came. Older than the old, older than the tide, it breathed
About the author.
awake.
Chronicles of Uzaya began not at a desk, but in a bed. It was written during and after recovery from pinched nerves, first in his back, then his shoulder, one session at a time. The story was shaped by random dice rolls. What the dice decided stayed. What endured became the foundations for the Chronicles of Uzaya. As a musician, Ray writes the way he composes, with rhythm in mind. Every line in this book was shaped for cadence. Readers who find themselves reading passages aloud are doing exactly what was intended. The world of Tharn Eskar grew from a tabletop tradition, but every creature, faction, magic system, and culture within it was shaped specifically for this world. The harmonic Blackstone technology and the spiral ley line system are grounded in real principles of frequency, resonance, and vibration. Ancient cultures understood that sound shapes matter. It moves stone. It orders structure. This story grows from the possibility of harnessing that force in both magic and architecture. Original music inspired by this world can be found at SUNO.com under the handle @Uzish777. This audiobook is narrated by an AI voice built using 11 Labs technology. No human voice was used in the recording.